203. The Monkey and the Fishing Net. A monkey was sitting on a high tree when he saw some fishermen casting their nets into a river. He watched carefully what they were doing. After a while, the fishermen left their net behind and walked away for a short distance. The monkey, eager to imitate them, climbed down from the tree and tried to use the net. But he had no experience and no knowledge of how fishing worked. As he fumbled with the net, he became entangled and was in danger of drowning. The monkey, realizing his mistake, said, "I deserve this. Why did I try to fish without knowing how?" This fable shows that attempts to imitate what one is not qualified to do can be not only unwise but also harmful. 2.4. The Rich Man and the Tanner. A tanner was about to move next to a rich man, but the rich man could not stand the smell and tried to get rid of him. The tanner said, "At first, it will bother you a little, but soon you will get used to it, and after a while you won't even notice the smell." The rich man responded, "We will not lose our sense of smell just because of your profession." This fable shows that a person should not accept foolish advice, especially when it goes against their nature. 205. The Daughter and the Hired Mourners. There was a rich man who had 2 daughters, but one of his daughters died. He hired some women to mourn, and they cried loudly. The other daughter said to her mother, "How miserable we must be if we can't even mourn for our own loss, while these women, who aren't even part of the family, beat their breasts and grieve so intensely." The mother replied, "Don't be surprised, my child. They do it for the money." The fable shows that some people will take on the grief of others just for a profit. 206. The Shepherd, the Dog, and the Sick Sheep. A shepherd had a dog that he fed with dead or dying sheep. One day he saw the dog standing next to a sick lamb, looking sad and appearing to cry. The shepherd spoke to him, saying, "You're putting on a good show of sympathy, but let's hope that what you want won't happen after all." This fable shows that every heir to a fortune pretends to sympathize with the sick person, making a hollow show of weeping. 207. The Shepherd and the Sea. A shepherd was tending his flocks by the sea. When he saw that the sea was calm and peaceful, he decided to go on a voyage. He sold his sheep and bought some dates, which he loaded onto a ship. He set sail, but a fierce storm arose and the ship was in danger of sinking. He lost everything and barely managed to reach land. Later, when the sea calmed again, the shepherd saw a man on the shore praising the sea for its calmness. The shepherd said, "That's just because the sea wants your dates." This fable shows that the misfortunes of people often become lessons for others. 208. The Shepherd and the Sheep. A shepherd led his sheep into an oak grove. He spread his cloak under an oak tree and climbed up to shake the acorns down. While the sheep ate the acorns, they also ate the shepherd's cloak, though the shepherd was unaware of it. When he climbed down and saw what had happened, he said, "Oh, you wicked creatures! You give wool to others so they can make clothes, but you take my clothes and destroy them, even though I am the one who feeds you." The fable shows that people often help others who have nothing to do with them, while treating their own families badly. 209. The Shepherd and the Wolf Cubs. A shepherd found some wolf cubs and raised them, thinking that when they grew up, they would protect his flock and even bring back stolen sheep to his sheepfold. But when the cubs grew up, the first thing they did was destroy the shepherd's own flock. The shepherd groaned and said, "I deserve this. Why didn't I kill them when they were young?" The fable shows that when people shelter a criminal, they often become his first victims without even realizing it. 210. The Boy Who Cried Wolf. A boy was tending sheep, and often he would run up to the embankment and shout, "Help, there's a wolf!" The farmers would rush to his aid, only to find that he was lying. This happened many times. But one day a wolf really did appear, and when the boy cried out, the farmers didn't believe him. No one came to help, and the wolf easily destroyed the whole flock. The story shows how liars are treated. Even when they tell the truth, no one believes them. 211. The Drowning Boy. A boy had gone down to the river to bathe, but because he couldn't swim, he was in danger of drowning. He saw a man walking by and called out for help. As the man was pulling the boy out of the water, he scolded him, saying, "If you can't swim, why did you dare to try these swollen river waters?" The boy replied, "Right now, I just need your help. You can lecture me about it later when I'm safe." This story shows that criticizing someone during a time of crisis is inappropriate and unhelpful. 212. The Widow and Her Sheep. A widow once kept a sheep at her home. Wanting to gather more wool, she sheared the sheep awkwardly, cutting into its flesh as she did. The sheep, in pain, cried out, "Why are you hurting me? Will my blood really add much to the weight of the wool? If you want my flesh, mistress, there is a butcher who can kill me quickly. But if you want wool rather than flesh, a shearer can clip me without causing harm." The fable shows that those who are inexperienced and act out of greed end up causing more harm than good. And 213. The Trees and the Bramble Bush. The pomegranate and the apple tree were arguing about which one was more beautiful. They went on for a long time, debating fiercely. Nearby, a bramble bush overheard them and said, "Dear friends, let's stop fighting." The fable shows that when those who are of higher standing are in a dispute, even the lowliest of people try to act as if they are important. 214. The Mole and His Mother. The mole is a blind animal. One day a mole wanted to kiss his mother, but instead of kissing her on the mouth, he touched her private parts. His brothers saw this, and one of them said, "You got what you deserved. You wanted something great, but you've lost even your sense of smell." The fable shows that a sinful mind can even change a person's nature, causing it to be impaired. 215. The Farmer, the Wasps, and the Partridges. Once upon a time there were some wasps and some partridges who were extremely thirsty. They went to a farmer and asked him for a drink of water. In return, the partridges promised to dig around his vines, making them produce excellent grapes. The wasps, on the other hand, promised to guard the vines by stinging thieves who came near. The farmer replied, "But I have these 2 oxen, who do everything for me without asking for anything in return. It would be better to give the water to them, not to you." This fable is appropriate for a man who is ungrateful. 216. The Snake and the Wasp. A wasp landed on a snake's head and began to sting him over and over. The snake writhed in pain, but no matter what he did, he couldn't shake off his tormentor. Desperate, he slithered onto the road and spotted a wagon approaching. Lowering his head beneath the wheel, he said, "Then I shall perish with my enemy." This fable is for those who choose to share their fate with their enemies. 217. The Bull and the Goats. A bull, fleeing from a lion, sought shelter in a cave. Inside he found some wild goats, and they started to push him with their horns. The bull said to them, "I am not afraid of you. It is the lion outside that scares me." This fable shows that when powerful people threaten you, even the weak and insignificant may take the opportunity to attack. 218. The Monkey and Her 2 Children. A monkey gave birth to 2 babies. After giving birth, however, she did not treat them equally. One baby was smothered with cruel affection, choked by her overbearing love. The other was discarded as unnecessary and unimportant. This baby wandered into the wild, where it managed to survive. This story is a reminder that sometimes it's better to be an enemy than a friend to certain people. 219. The Peacock elected king of the birds. Once a group of birds gathered to decide who should rule over them. The peacock claimed, "I am the best choice for king, as I am extraordinarily beautiful and in my prime." The other birds agreed with him. However, the raven, entering the group, objected and said, "If you become king, what will happen when the eagle attacks us? Are you strong enough to protect us?" This fable shows that the kingship is not for those who are just beautiful, but for those who have strength and wisdom. 220. The Camel and the Elephant. The dumb beasts wanted to elect a king from amongst their ranks. The camel and the elephant were the 2 leading candidates because of their size and strength. However, the monkey argued that both were unfit for the role. "The camel cannot rule us," said the monkey, "because she doesn't have the strength to fight those who go against us. As for the elephant, there's a potential danger. How will he defend us from the little pigs?" This fable shows that even the greatest achievements can be hindered by small issues that prevent them from coming to fruition. 221. Zeus and the Snake. Zeus was preparing for his wedding, and all the animals brought gifts. The snake also came, slithering along with a rose in his mouth. When Zeus saw him, he said, "I will accept gifts from all the others, even if they bring them with their feet, but I will take nothing from your mouth." The fable shows that even the favors of wicked people are frightening. 222. The dog, the sow, and Aphrodite. A dog and a sow were hurling insults at each other. The sow swore by Aphrodite that she would tear the dog apart with her teeth. The dog sneered and said, "Oh, how fitting that you swear by Aphrodite. She loves you so much that she won't even let anyone who has tasted your filthy flesh enter her temple." The sow shot back, "That just proves how much she favors me. She turns away anyone who has harmed me in any way. But you, whether you're alive or dead, you always stink." This fable shows how a clever speaker can skillfully turn an enemy's insult into praise. 223. The sow and the dog. A sow and a dog were arguing about which of them had the easier time giving birth. "The delivery is effortless for me," said the dog. "No other four-legged animal has it as easy as I do." The sow replied, "That may be true, but remember, your puppies are born blind." This fable shows that success should be judged not by speed, but by the final result. 224. The wild boar and the fox. A wild boar stood by a tree, sharpening his tusks. A fox saw him and asked, "Why are you doing that now?" "There's no hunter, no danger in sight." The boar replied, "That's exactly why I do it. If danger comes, I won't waste time sharpening my tusks. I'll be ready to fight." This fable shows that one must prepare for danger before it arrives. 225. The miser and his gold. A miser sold everything he owned and bought a lump of gold. He buried it outside the city walls and visited it constantly, just to look at it. One day a workman noticed his strange behavior. Suspecting the truth, he waited for the miser to leave, then dug up the gold and took it. When the miser returned and found the spot empty, he broke down in tears, tearing at his hair in despair. A passerby saw his grief and asked what had happened. When he heard the story, he said, "Stop crying. Just take a stone, put it in the same place and pretend it's your gold. You never used it anyway. Owning something is useless unless you make use of it." Blala 226. The tortoise and the hare. The hare mocked the tortoise for being slow, but the tortoise said, "I will outrun you in a race." The hare laughed, "That's just talk. Race me and we'll see. But who will set the course and judge the winner?" "The fox," said the tortoise. "She is fair and wise." They agreed on a time, and as soon as the race began, the tortoise started moving steadily down the track. The hare, confident in his speed, lay down and took a nap. By the time he finally reached the finish line, the tortoise was already there. 227. The swallow and the snake. Spring had come. A swallow, the little bird that shares its home with humans, built her nest in the wall of a courthouse where elderly jurors gathered. There she became the mother of 7 chicks. But a snake slithered out of its hole and devoured them all, one by one. The wretched mother mourned the loss of her children. "What misery!" she cried. "This is the very place where humans seek justice. And yet I, a swallow, have suffered the worst injustice and must flee." This fable exposes those who rule over others with unjust judgment, violating the very laws they claim to uphold. 228. The swans and the geese. A group of swans and geese became friends and went out to graze in the meadows. As they were peacefully feeding together, some hunters appeared. The swans, being swift and light, quickly took flight and escaped. But the geese, weighed down by their heavy bodies, were left behind and caught by the hunters. This fable shows that some people abandon their friends in times of crisis. 229. The swallow, the raven, and the seasons. The swallow and the raven were arguing over which of them was more beautiful. Then the raven said, "Your beauty lasts only in spring. But when winter comes, you cannot withstand the cold. My body, on the other hand, endures both the freezing winter and the scorching summer." This fable shows that lasting strength is better than fleeting beauty. How 230. The tortoise and the eagle. A slow-moving tortoise once envied the birds that soared through the sky. She often sighed, "If only I had wings like them." An eagle overheard her and, amused, said, "Little tortoise, what would you give me if I lifted you into the air?" "I'd give you all the treasures of the Eastern Sea," the tortoise eagerly replied. "Then let me teach you," said the eagle. He grabbed the tortoise in his talons and carried her high into the sky. Up and up they went until the clouds surrounded them. Then, without warning, he let go. The tortoise plummeted down and crashed onto the rocks below, shattering her shell. As she lay dying, she gasped, "I brought this upon myself. What use did I have for wings when I already struggled to walk on land?" Hashtag 31. The Man, the Flea, and Heracles. A flea once leapt onto a man's foot and settled there. The man called upon Heracles for help. When the flea finally jumped away, the man sighed and said, "Oh, Heracles, if you would not aid me against a mere flea, how will you ever stand by me against mightier foes?" This fable shows that one should not invoke the gods for trivial matters, but only in times of true necessity. 232. The Foxes at the River. A group of foxes gathered by the banks of the river Meander, eager to drink. But the water rushed by so fiercely that none of them dared to step in. They urged one another to go first, yet all hesitated. Then one fox stepped forward, mocking the others for their cowardice. Laughing, she boasted that she was braver than the rest. Without hesitation, she leaped into the river. The current immediately swept her away. As she was carried downstream, the other foxes called out from the riverbank, "Don't leave us. Turn back and show us a safe way to drink." Drifting farther away, the fox replied, "I have a message to deliver to Miletus. Once I return, I'll show you the way." This is a story about those who bring trouble upon themselves through arrogance. Note, the Meander River flows through present-day western Turkey, and in its lower reaches was the ancient Ionian city of Miletus. 233. The Swan and his Owner. It is said that swans sing when they are about to die. One day, a man came across a swan that was for sale and bought it, having heard that swans sing beautifully. At his next dinner party, he brought the swan, expecting the bird to serenade his guests during the meal. However, the swan remained completely silent. Later, when the swan realized that death was near, he began to sing his funeral dirge. Upon hearing this, his owner said, "If you're only going to sing at the moment of your death, then I was a fool to have asked you to do it. I should have just ordered you to be slaughtered instead." Some people are like this. They agree to do things when forced, that they would never do as a favor. 234. The Wolf and the Shepherd. A wolf followed a flock of sheep without harming them. At first, the shepherd watched the wolf closely, considering it a potential enemy, and kept a close eye on it. But as the wolf kept following the flock and did not attempt to attack the sheep, the shepherd began to see the wolf more as a guardian of the flock than a threat. Later, when the shepherd had to go to town, he left the sheep in the wolf's care. The wolf saw his opportunity and, taking advantage of it, attacked the sheep and killed most of them. When the shepherd returned and saw the devastation, he said, "I deserve this. How could I ever have trusted a wolf with my sheep?" The same is true for people. If you entrust your money to greedy men, you will certainly be robbed. 235. The Ant, the Pigeon, and the Bird-Catcher. An ant was thirsty and went to a spring to drink. However, the current of the water caught him and he was in danger of drowning. A pigeon saw this and broke off a leaf from a nearby tree. She threw it into the water so that the ant could climb onto it and save himself. Meanwhile, a bird-catcher appeared, preparing his limed reeds to catch the pigeon. When the ant saw this, he bit the bird-catcher on the foot. The bird-catcher in pain shook his reeds, causing the pigeon to fly away safely. The story shows that even dumb beasts experience fellow feeling and come to one another's aid. 236. The Merchant and the Ravens. Some merchants were on a journey when they met a raven who was blind in one eye. The travellers stopped, and one of them said that the raven's behaviour was a sign that they should turn back. Another traveller disagreed and said, "How can this bird predict what will happen to us when he couldn't even foresee the loss of his own eye to prevent it?" This is the way of people. Someone who cannot manage their own affairs is not fit to give advice to others. 237. The Man and the New Donkey. There was a man who wanted to buy a donkey. He selected one donkey for further examination and led him to where his own donkeys were, leaving him by the feeding trough. The new donkey went and stood next to the laziest and greediest of the donkeys, ignoring all the others. Since the new donkey showed no sign of better behaviour, the man took him away again and returned him to his former master. When asked if he had given the donkey a fair chance, the man explained, "I don't even need to test him. I know what kind of donkey he is by the company he keeps." The story shows that a person is considered similar to the people whose companionship he enjoys. 238. The decoys and the doves. A birdcatcher set up his net and tied some tame doves to it as decoys. He then stepped back and waited to see what would happen. Some wild doves flew toward the tame doves and got caught in the net's knots. When the birdcatcher ran over to capture them, the wild doves became angry with the tame doves. They blamed them for not warning them about the trap, even though they were all the same species. The tame doves replied, "However, it's better for us to protect the interests of our masters than to please our relatives." The same is true for household servants. They should not be blamed if their loyalty to their masters leads them to set aside their loyalty to their kin. 239. The Oath's Punishment. A man took a deposit from a friend, but he planned to keep it for himself. When the depositor called him to swear an oath about the deposit, the man, realizing the danger, decided to leave the city and go to his farm. As he approached the city gates, he saw a lame man leaving the city as well. He asked the man who he was and where he was going. The man replied that he was the god Oath and that he was on his way to track down wicked people. The man then asked Oath how often he returned to each city. Oath answered, "I come back after 40 years, or sometimes 30. So the very next day, the man swore an oath that he had never received the deposit. But he then encountered Oath again, who dragged him to the edge of a cliff. The man asked Oath how he could say that he would not return for another 30 years, when in fact he had not even given him a single day's reprieve. Oath replied, "You should know that whenever someone intends to provoke me, I usually return on the same day." The fable shows that there is no fixed day on which wicked people are punished by the god. 240. Zeus and Prometheus. Following Zeus's orders, Prometheus created humans and animals. When Zeus saw that animals greatly outnumbered humans, he commanded Prometheus to reduce the number of animals by turning some of them into humans. Prometheus obeyed, and as a result, those who had once been animals now had human bodies but the souls of animals. This fable is suitable for a man who is rough and brutal. 241. The Cicada and the Fox. A cicada was singing on top of a tall tree. The fox wanted to eat the cicada, so she came up with a trick. She stood in front of the tree and admired the cicada's beautiful song. Then she called to the cicada, asking it to come down so that she could see how such a small creature could have such a loud voice. But the cicada saw through the fox's plan. He tore a leaf from the tree and let it fall. The fox, thinking it was the cicada, pounced on it. The cicada then said, "Ha! You must be crazy if you thought I would come down. I have been on guard against foxes ever since I saw the wings of a cicada in the tracks of a fox." This fable shows that a wise person learns from the misfortunes of others. 242. The Fox and the Hyena. They say that hyenas change their sex every year, so that sometimes they're male and sometimes female. So when a hyena saw a fox and criticized her for having spurned her friendly overtures, the fox replied, "Don't blame me. Blame your own nature, which makes it impossible for me to tell whether you would be my girlfriend or my boyfriend." This is a story for an ambiguous person. Note: in ancient Greece, it was believed that hyenas alternated between being female one year and male the next. This misconception arose because female hyenas have an enlarged clitoris that resembles the penis of a male. In reality, hyenas do not change sex, and this was simply a misunderstanding based on their unique physiological traits. 243. The Two Hyenas. They say that the hyena changes its gender. Sometimes it becomes male and sometimes it becomes female. One day, when a male hyena treated a female badly, the female said to him, "Remember how things were before. Don't forget that I will be male next time." This story teaches that those who hold power for a time may later find themselves judged by those who were once judged themselves. Note: hyenas live in social groups where males and females are mixed, but females are dominant. Females are larger, so males do not challenge them. Even if a female is smaller, she is still dominant over the male. 44. The Weasel and the Partridge. A man bought a partridge and let it run loose in the house because he liked the bird very much. The partridge immediately started squawking its usual song and wandered through every room in the house until it finally perched on the stairs. Meanwhile, a sneaky weasel rushed up to the partridge and asked, "Who are you? Where did you come from?" The partridge answered, "The master bought me just today. I am a partridge." The weasel replied, "Well, I have lived here a long time. My mother, the mouse killer, gave birth to me in this very house, yet I keep quiet and sleep by the hearth. How is it that you, who have only just arrived, can speak so freely and make so much noise?" 245. The Coward and the Ravens. A coward was on his way to war. As he marched, some ravens cawed at him. He grew uneasy, put down his weapons and stood still. But after a moment, he picked up his arms again and kept going. Then the ravens cawed once more. This time he hesitated, then finally said, "Caw all you want. You won't be tasting my flesh anyway." This fable is about those who are utterly cowardly. 246. The Woman and Her Drunken Husband. There was a woman whose husband was always drunk. Wanting to cure him of his drinking habit, she devised a clever plan. One night, after he had passed out in a deep, dead-like sleep, she lifted him onto her shoulders and carried him to the common cemetery. There she laid him down among the graves and left him. When she thought enough time had passed for him to sober up, she returned and knocked on the cemetery gate. "Who's there?" her husband called out. She replied, "I am the one who brings food to the dead." At this, her husband shouted back, "I don't need food. Just bring me something to drink, good man. It pains me to hear you talk of food but say nothing of drink." The woman clutched her chest in despair. "Oh, poor me," she cried. "Even my clever trick has failed. Husband, you have not only refused to learn your lesson, you have only gotten worse. Your drinking has become a permanent part of you." This fable shows that people should not persist in bad habits, for in time those habits may take hold so completely that they can never be broken. 247. Diogenes and the Ferryman. As Diogenes the Cynic was travelling, he came to a river that had overflowed its banks. He stood there, unable to cross. A ferryman, seeing his predicament, approached him, lifted him up, and carried him across with kindness. On the other side, Diogenes stood for a moment, lamenting his poverty, which left him unable to repay the man for his good deed. But while he was still lost in thought, the ferryman spotted another traveller who couldn't cross. Without hesitation, he ran off and carried that person across as well. Diogenes called out to him and said, "Well, I no longer feel indebted to you for what you did. I see now, it wasn't an act of judgment, but a compulsion." This story shows that those who help both the deserving and the undeserving alike are not seen as benevolent, but rather as fools. Note, if the Diogenes in this story is the Diogenes of Sinope, he would be a figure from 200 years after Aesop. 248. Diogenes and the Bald Man. When Diogenes the Cynic was insulted by a bald man, he replied, "I don't insult anyone, may it never be, but I must commend your hair for abandoning such a wretched head." 249. The Camel and the Dance. While out drinking, the owner of a camel ordered her to dance to the music. The camel refused and said, "I already look ridiculous just walking down the road, let alone dancing. It's out of the question." This story conveys the lesson that anything forced to be done unnaturally will always appear awkward. 250. The Nut Tree and the People. A walnut tree stood by the side of the road, and it bore much fruit. The passers-by threw stones and sticks at it to knock off the nuts. The tree, in sorrow, said to itself, "Woe is me! Each year I bring forth fruit to please myself, only to receive insults and sorrow in return." The fable criticizes those who, while benefiting from others' good deeds, respond with ingratitude and harm.